So I want to talk about a little bit about Maggie's character. What is it that allows her to be successful despite her surroundings, despite her upbringing, despite her background? And I think one way to do that might be to sort of contrast with her family, who we get to see a couple of times in this movie. So do you want to bring us into our mountaintop moment here that sort of illustrates the thematic elements?
Yeah, and I think this is the perfect time to bring in just a short definition of what the growth mindset is as we settle into the mountaintop here. So, when we talk about the growth mindset, I hear a lot of people say the words growth and mindset together, and they mean many different things by them. We are looking at Carol Dweck's kind of seminal work on the growth mindset. Very, very important here. She develops this idea through different clinical studies of the kind of central point of the growth mindset is I have the ability to gain skill to get better at something as long as I believe that I do. I continue to, it is my belief in that thing and getting better at it and then acting on that belief that allows me to get better at it. And that's great. And that sounds like a fraction of humanism and many other things, right, that have been around for a long time. And you can more or less agree with most of those things. But what's important about this as it relates to Maggie is that you can't just want it more. The growth mindset is not about wanting it more. It's not about believing it so that it becomes a reality. It's about believing it so that I put forth effort towards it. And so this is the other piece of the growth mindset. The growth mindset, the mechanism behind it, it is this idea that by putting forth effort each day consistently, regardless of the spot that I find myself in, I can make progress as long as I keep reflecting and putting forth effort. And that is the key to getting better at things. And that's what Maggie's superpower is. She's constantly reflecting and she's constantly putting forth more effort. And we can all apply that, and we'll talk about that in the practical application in the next section. But for right now, I want to look at how Maggie, like you said, Brian, applies that with her family.
Yeah, and so let me frame that briefly more by saying what we see her is pursuing this goal, right? We see her putting everything on the table in service of this goal. And what that means in practice is that she cares more about the possibility of setting herself up for success than she cares about the likelihood of suffering and loss and discomfort right now. Right? Like she's very much goal focused. When we talk about our limit break framework, you should go watch our limit break episodes. The idea that she's dissatisfied with the current state of the world and she's got some change in the world that she's trying to achieve, and she's trying to bridge that gap with effort, with persistence, with expertise, with growth. She's not afraid. She's not afraid of losing something. She's not afraid of getting hit in the face. She's not afraid of working really, really hard. She's not really afraid to have to scrape together her pennies, right? And so I think what we see, the contrast there is in her relationship with her family, which is portrayed as being much less successful. Her mother, who's, cheating on welfare, and her sister who's cheating on welfare and Medicaid, and her brother who's incarcerated. They're portrayed as being not very successful and being fairly selfish about it. So bring us into our mountaintop. What's a moment in this movie that sort of illustrates the difference in her mindset compared with her family?
Yeah, so we have a couple different moments with her family, but let's start with the moment where she decides she's finally got enough money, and she's been having Maggie these moments with her mentor, Frankie, who he's like, okay, are you saving money? Like, are you making sure to be smart with your finances? And he sees her checkbook, and she is, and clearly she's not spending it on her current accommodations or anything like that, because she doesn't care about that. And then she comes to tell Frankie, well, I bought a house and it's like a mile down the road from where my mom currently lives. And actually it's for my family. And Frankie's like, oh, okay. He can see it. He understands why this is a thing that she would do. And then she asks Frankie to go with her to let her mom know that she bought her a house. And obviously this is a thing that, it's a moment with many famous athletes, like, buying my parents a car and a house or whatever, right? You might do it even if you're not a famous athlete. It's a way to give back to somebody who gave to you. But the problem is she does it, and first thing her mom does is criticize her, right? Her sister comes in and she's like, there's not even a fridge. And she's like, well, I already ordered it. It'll be here soon. And then her mom's like, well, I'm not going to be able to cheat on welfare. Like, I'm not going to be able to continue to skate by barely alive anymore because you've given me something of actual value.
Right. Right. And they are in that moment, they are more worried about losing the minimal things that they already have, which is basically government assistance, than they are excited about gaining the potential for a more comfortable lifestyle to be able to, kind of step up and be more successful. And so the classical descriptions of this are either the endowment effect, where you assign more value to things that you have than things that you don't have, or loss aversion is the flip side of it, is like I'm afraid of losing a thing that I've got, and that causes me to not feel pleasure in anticipating something new or not being willing to take something on new. And those are, I think they're both kind of the absolute flip side of where Maggie is. Partly because she feels like she doesn't have anything that she values, but also because she's willing to go through risk in order to get to a goal. And what we see is the contrast with her family is they are completely unwilling to accept any risk of losing their current minimal lifestyle, their current minimal income, to potentially get to something better, to be able to enjoy something better.
Yeah, I would even take it another level, Brian. She's willing to go through the pain, and this is key to the growth mindset. Maggie is willing to go through the pain that it's going to take to put forth that effort. I mean, just go back in the movie a little bit before this section when she's getting knocked down, she breaks her nose, and she's asking Frankie, like, no, just fix my nose right now. I just need 30 seconds. Let me to go back in there, and I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to put forth effort. And that's Maggie's character, obviously, that she's willing to take these risks, but she's willing to go through the pain right there of having her nose fixed on the spot and continue to fight. And it's the same thing she does with her family, right? She goes in, she offers them this gift, and what does she get? They punch her in the nose. But she's willing to continue to go through that because she has high integrity, because she's being mentored by Frankie, who has high integrity. And they believe that there's a right way to do things, a consistent way of doing things that will result in better things for the world, even when you get punched in the face for doing it that way.
Right. And she's willing to keep trying, right? She's willing to keep going back even when it fails, even when she tries something for her family and they kind of barf on it. Every time she gets knocked down in the ring, she comes back to the corner, and her question to Frankie is always not like, why didn't you tell me, or this isn't going to work, or, oh my God, we're going to fail. It's always like, what am I doing wrong? What can I do better? How do I solve this problem? She's always about going and attacking the problem.
Yeah, she is, Brian. And in a way, she does that at the end as well. You could argue at the end she's giving up on her family when they come in and they try to get her to sign off on the papers with the lawyer to sign all of her money as she's going to die over to them. But I think actually what's happening there is integrity. It's consistency of her character, because she's loving her family, and she has a realization that it's not out of spite and hatred for her family. It's out of love for her family that she's doing this, because she realizes that giving them money is going to just worsen the problem. That cannot be the solution for people in that current situation.
It's at least recognition that it wouldn't be helpful, it wouldn't be skillful to just enable them further. And yeah, and so obviously can't ignore the elephant in the room here, right? The movie doesn't end well for Maggie. Maggie, on one level, achieves many of her goals. She gets to the championship fight. She's a very successful fighter. She develops expertise. She's able to experience the joy that she imagined in her life. She's able to develop a relationship with Frankie that she never had with her natural family. But then she ends up paralyzed and wanting to die on a ventilator in a hospital. And so this isn't a movie about inevitable success. This isn't a superhero movie where the good guys always win and walk away at the end, right? This is a movie about that tension and conflict and risk that is inevitable in trying to achieve something extraordinary, and what sort of the human experience is of it. And so that's kind of what I want to focus on here. We'll talk about this more from Frankie's viewpoint in our next episode. But the takeaway here I don't think you can come away from this movie watching Maggie's experience and saying, well, she shouldn't have tried. She should have stayed a waitress, right? Like nobody would watch this movie and be like, well, she should have just been satisfied to be a waitress because that would have been better. It wouldn't have been. She had the experiences she wanted to have. She pursued the things that she wanted to have despite the risks. And part of the wonderful things about this world are the things that are created by people that are willing to go out on a limb for them. But that doesn't mean the risks are not there. That doesn't mean that the good guys always get to go live in the mansion and retire at the end, right? What we see in this movie also is that there are real downsides and real potential for failure. And facing that is part of the commitment, is part of the persistence, is part of the integrity.